Every year, the AAPC polls its members on things like their salary, where they're working, if they're happy with their job, and they compile that all into an article in AAPC, the magazine. There's always a lot of great insights when we look at this survey. So today we're going to take a look at the salary survey information so we can give you a better understanding of things like how location and years of experience and even certifications can impact your salary. By the way, if you're new here, I'm Victoria Mole. I'm a medical coder, auditor, educator, and content creator. And on my channel, I provide tips, tricks, and tutorials to help you be successful in a medical coding career. If you haven't already, highly encourage you to subscribe, hit the notification bell so you can get alerts when I post new episodes. So first, I want to mention that this is the AAPC salary survey. So the only people that are polled in this survey are members of the AAPC. And the statistics are only based off of people that responded. So it's not like they went to employers and were like, give me all of your salary information data. It relies strictly on the input from AAPC members. So these numbers could potentially be skewed if, for example, a lot of new members didn't submit their information, or even a lot of members that have a lot of years experience didn't submit it. So it's based strictly on member survey input. So for 2020 year, this is based off of the 2023 year data. I personally found it interesting that the survey kind of started saying out that inflation rates are down and unemployment rates are on the decline. I don't know, we'll see, because I've not felt like throughout the U.S. population it has been, but maybe based off of their salary survey information for our particular industry it is. I will also mention, I found it interesting that I know that from a employment job title, U.S. labor and statistics, they consider us medical record specialists. That's kind of where they lump a lot of people that work in medical billing and coding and compliance. But it's interesting because the AAPC has recently rebranded Healthcare Business Monthly as AAPC, the magazine, stating that they did this because they want the magazine to highlight all of the amazing members that we have of the AAPC. And although that's the reason they're stating, I think honestly what is really happening is that the AAPC is breaking out of the quote-unquote business of healthcare and into other aspects of healthcare. And because of that, they're saying, oh, well, we won't call it Healthcare Business Monthly. And they're trying not to draw attention to that. And they're going, oh, well, kind of sugarcoating it a little bit and going, oh, well, we're going to start by calling the magazine AAPC the magazine because we're going to just highlight all of our members, and it's made by members for members. So while not entirely untrue, I think there is some more thought process behind that change. But again, medical record specialists, I don't think is comprehensive of all AAPC members. But that's just kind of how the Bureau of Labor and Statistics tends to classify a lot of these types of positions. Now, what we're seeing here is pretty indicative of what we usually see. More credentials are more money, more years of experience is more money. And depending on what region you're going to be in, you might get more money. That's why I like to tell people when they say, oh, what's the salary going to be? Check the AAPC salary calculator, because the salary calculator, you can input things like what credentials you're looking for, where you're located, how many years experience you have, and it will give you a more accurate number. One thing that's really been in the spotlight is telemedicine. And if you're in the healthcare field and navigating the ever-changing world of digital health billing and reimbursement, it can feel like an absolute maze. Well, I found something that can definitely help you out, especially if you are looking to stand out to employers who really want you to have a good hold on these policies. It's going to look amazing for your employment potential. The University of New Hampshire is offering an incredible course led by the renowned Tony L. Holmes. Imagine getting a blueprint to telehealth billing and coding and ensuring that you are fully compliant while maximizing your reimbursement. The course is fully asynchronous, meaning you can dive in anytime, anywhere. So whether you're a provider, you're part of a health system, you're a coder, you're a biller, this is going to arm you with the latest strategies, case studies, and best practices. Do not miss out on this opportunity to elevate your game in the digital health space. And the best part is you can get 10% off if you use the code Contempo10, and you can use that on just the coding portion of it or the full course. And honestly, you might just want the full course. Definitely check it out. The link is in the description below. I think it's kind of interesting, though, if we look here, this paragraph really is amusing me. In 2023, the biggest income increase for AAPC certified members went to those holding the approved instructor and those holding a CPCP credential with an annual salary increase of $10,000. So the CPCP, I don't think has been offered by the AAPC in a number of years. It was sunset many years ago. I believe because the exam itself doesn't just speak to like, oh, well, here's if you're working on the payer side and here's if you're working on the provider side. It's kind of a mix of everything. So I don't think it was really worthwhile anymore to differentiate payers versus non-payers. So the CPC really just covers both sides versus having one that's kind of carved out for payers. And honestly, you should be coding the same whether you're on the payer side versus the provider side, right? The fact that there was a change in CPCPs is interesting because, again, they've not even offered that credential in quite a number of years. I would say off the top of my head, between 7 to 10 years. It's stating that unemployment rates have fallen, which I can understand. I think there were quite a few people that during the pandemic were laid off because of the elective surgeries being halted for quite some time. And now we're starting to see a higher increase of contract work coming in, especially now that we are in the era of the audit. There's a lot more need for medical coders. I'm not sure if we've previously highlighted the unemployment rates. I feel like this might be new for this year. But let's see, we do have statistics 4 years back from overall versus apprentice versus the full-fledged CPCs. And it looks like, understandably, when you're an apprentice coder, it takes a while for you to get your first position. And that way is true for a lot of things. Most people, when they finish with college, it takes a while for them to find a job in their field. I always tell people, if you want to get into a career where you know you're going to have a job as soon as you're done with your training, like get into nursing. Other than that, I'm not always 100% sure on what you can almost be guaranteed a job of anymore. But it does look like compared to the prior year, we are seeing a decrease in unemployment, although it looks like the same as it was in 2021, which is interesting. So it looks like unemployment went up last year, but then it kind of came back down again in 2023. Now, as far as salary based on certification, you can see here some of the highest one is our AAPC approved instructors. Approved instructors are seeing a good amount of money now, especially as they are getting more accustomed to training online. We're getting more savvy in our business, and even the ones that aren't working independently, there's a lot more need for them in academic institutions, and there's a lot more opportunities, I think, to earn some extra money on the side now, even as an instructor. If you're working maybe full-time as a coder and then also instructing a couple of courses for a tech school on the side, I do see that a lot. Or even opportunities like offering CEU courses. Now, compliance officer is another one that's high. It looks like the average here, let's see, we have the dark green is our 2022, light green is 2023. Compliance officers are seeing a big increase, and that could be partially because, again, it is no longer the quote-unquote year of the audit. We are now in the era of the audit. Audits are happening all the time, everywhere, and you are no longer safe. It is just audit. And because of that, compliance officers have to really be on their toes. They have to be trained a lot more. There's a lot more at stake. And also, most people that work in compliance are not brand new to healthcare. So I like to say, if you are someone who is brand new and you're like, oh, well, what certification can I get where I'm going to make a lot of money? It might look tempting to just be like, oh, well, I'll get certified in compliance and I will immediately get $89,000 a year. When we talk about the fact that this survey gets information from all AAPC members, a lot of people that work in compliance have years and years of experience. We're even seeing an influx lately of people that have worked in billing and coding for a number of years, then going into compliance. So while you can go out and get a CPCO certification with no official training, landing a compliance role at $89,000 a year right away is not likely. There are an increase of compliance assistants or compliance specialist type roles, but typically it's something that you do have to build up to. And also a lot of people that are working in compliance have degrees as well. And we'll talk about degrees as we get further in the survey. It looks like CPCs are seeing a decent increase. It went from 60,000 to 64. Also CRCs, honestly, still ahead. Isn't that crazy? That risk adjustment coding, which works on one code set, ICD-10-CM versus 3 code sets with CPC, is seeing a higher salary than CPCs. Not as much as inpatient coding, which is 74,000. So I feel like inpatient coding has a lot of intricacies, and there's definitely more money to be made in inpatient coding. Although if you look, billing and coding are becoming a lot more comparable. I think people are starting to see the value of having a very adept biller. Now, this section I always find very interesting, and that's the breakdown of how many people have college degrees and how many people that impacts their salary. One of the things I've noted with the AAPC is I feel like sometimes like to put people on pedestals who have, their bachelor's degrees and their master's degrees and go, oh, this is your leadership. This is who you should be. You should be the person who has the master's in health informatics or master's of health administration. But when we look at the majority of our population with the AAPC, over half of us have an associate's degree or less. A lot of the people that are in our membership do not even have an associate's degree, myself included. And I think the representation of those of us that do not have any college experience or maybe went to a tech school, I think that representation is very much needed within our industry, which is part of the reason that motivates me. So if we really dive into this survey, and I'll zoom it in just a little bit here. If we really dive into this survey section about your degrees, people ask me all the time, should I get an associate's degree? Should I get my bachelor's degree? I will not tell anyone, no, you should not get education, especially if your employer is paying for it, or you're like, hey, I think this is what I want. I'm moving in the direction that I want a position that's going to require one of these, or I just want to feel better rounded about myself and my career. But when we look at this, there is not a significant difference in salaries. Historically, there just hasn't been. We're seeing, it looks like this year maybe a slight increase. It looks like maybe now this year, people with bachelor's degrees are earning a little bit more than they had previously. But honestly, no college to $58,000, $59,000 with some or maybe an associate's degree. And then we're seeing here with the bachelor's degree, look at that. Like it's jumped up now this year. Maybe we're getting more responses. And then when we do see a significant increase when it gets to the master's degree or above. But honestly, let's remember that there are just certain certification types that we could possibly get that will put us around that same range. And you just have to remember the toxic work hustle that we have in the United States, where a lot of the positions that require bachelor's and master's degrees are going to be people who are salaried, people that are in management and higher. And that means they're going to not be working a 40-hour work week. They're going to be working a 50, 60-hour work week because that's just how freaking crazy we are in the United States. So it might be more beneficial in the long run to not have student loans, to bust your butt as a medical coder and maybe get some contract jobs on the side or do some CEU courses or some tutoring or something and supplement your income that way and probably work less than the people that are working at these director level positions and make just as much money. Now, as we scroll down here, we've got salary based on work experience and salary based off of workplace. Again, I'm going to zoom in a little bit and we're going to look at years on the job. Not surprising, the more years you have of experience, the more you're going to get paid. We're seeing even an increase from previous years. So I have, 16 years experience now. So I'm right in here. I can tell you with my position, I'm making quite a bit more than this, but this is just the average. And again, this is not medical coders. This is the quote, medical records specialist. So I don't know if that means like everyone that's a member of the AAPC, if they're including compliance officers in there. I have no idea because they're classifying it weird as medical record specialists. So I guess that means all of the AAPC members. I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. I'm going to assume all AAPC members because I don't know if they broke it down. I don't see any further breakdown for job types like medical record specialist. I don't know. But even so, I think it's a pretty decent increase, like 0 to 1 year's experience, 44,000, and then it goes up to 49. Again, I think these numbers are kind of odd because we're including those compliance officers that make a ton and then also CPCAs and medical billers. So that's why I really like the salary calculator. Now, this is average income by workplace. So the smaller practices usually don't have as much money, but they do give some different, sometimes fringe benefits like free care to yourself and your family. Where we saw the highest increase, it looks like, is large group practices. So practices with lots of employers. Hospital inpatient has gone up a good amount. Health system, I mean, I feel like I feel like the majority of people are health systems these days. So it looks like on the lower range is the small solo group practice. And then on the highest range is our large health systems. And then here we see the breakdown of job type. So they've grouped in coding and billing, which for 2023 saw an average of $54,545. Highest here is coding and billing managers. Education's pretty high. Auditing is around the same as education. And practice managers have seen a very small increase. I mean, it looks like, coding billing managers have seen the largest increase this year. This one I think is super important, and I wish I could get a further breakdown of the salary versus how many hours worked. It looks like overwhelmingly most people are working like a straight 40 hours, like boom, 40 hours right there. I would wager the people who are working more than that are either working two positions or they are working in some sort of salaried supervisory auditing specialist, maybe even type of role. But it is really good to see that a lot of us are sticking to the nice 40-hour work week and not overexerting ourselves, but that those of us who want to maybe maximize our financial earning capabilities are working those extra hours. Sometimes the cost that extra stress from those hours puts on your body is just not worth the income, especially in the long run when you wind up like at the emergency room, like, why am I having chest pain? What's going on? Now, if we look at the breakdown by region, obviously California has a higher cost of living, so there's going to be more income for those people there. Hawaii's even included in there. They have a higher cost of living. Texas looks like a pretty decent area. They're around 61,000 based off of that area. Mid-Atlantic's where I am, and honestly, I can say that's pretty comparable. New York City is in there, so there's going to be a higher cost of living there. New England is kind of high as well. On the lower end of the spectrum is some of those southern states: Alabama, Kentucky, Mississippi, Tennessee, which kind of makes sense. And then it starts getting into the remote work. It looks like 63.7% of people surveyed are working remotely. Only 21% are on-site, and then 15.3% is a combination of on-site and remote, which I think is a nice mix. Now, while they don't have a graph for this, they do include job satisfaction, which I think is super important. 69.4% of respondents said they are happy or satisfied with their job and their compensation, and they are not seeking employment opportunities. This is a 6.8% jump from the 62.6% who reported job satisfaction last year. Only a small portion said that they were very dissatisfied with their job, 572 out of the 17,048 respondents. See, this is again why I say we have to be careful with this survey information, is because the AAPC has over 200,000 members, and only 17,000 people responded to the salary survey. So if the only people that responded to the survey were the people who were like, hey, well, I'm doing so good and I love my job so much, I have plenty of time to answer the survey and tell you about all of the money I'm making, versus people who were like, I hate this and I can't stand my job, like that's going to skew the numbers. So that's it for the AAPC salary survey. Definitely let me know if you agree with this or if you're seeing different trends in your area. I would love to know your thoughts. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I will see you guys in the next video. And until then, just keep on coding on.